Good morning traders, welcome to the RMD weekly market overview. Since we did not get any requests to review any new instruments this week, we'll be looking at our usual lineup. But remember, as our loyal subscribers, which have now reached an amazing 400 members, we will welcome your feedback and will welcome also your input. I'm going to let the disclaimer roll and I will see you in a few ticks. Starting off the week with the US dollar to South African rand. So we can see that the area that was previously our support area at 17 rand 35 and also the area between that and 17.40, that used to be our area of support, and that area has now turned into resistance. As we can see, we have these highs now being rejected off of this level. And at this stage, it's also beginning to look more and more likely that this head and shoulders that we identified last week is now going to fully play out. So just projecting that head and shoulder target down, we'll see we're coming down to around the 17 rand 05 cents area. And of course, just taking into account also that we have our 200 moving average at 17 rand, meaning this would be a likely area for a target. And something I've also just noticed is that we do have this larger head and shoulder pattern emerging, and it's not a very clear picture at all, but should this be something that lays out in the end, it could take us as low as this yearly R2 and this yearly R2 level at 16 rand 55. At this stage, it's still too early to call anything like that, and it would rather be likely that we do find some support on the 200 SMA and move higher. And just looking at the projected weekly pivots for the week, we can see that it would be very important to get back above this weekly pivot at 17 rand 25. And if we do so, we could perhaps expect to move higher towards the resistance at the monthly R1 pivot at 17 rand 50. And only if we get back above that, of course, we will see new highs being made. We are now looking at the Euro USD. Last week we saw price break higher, firstly reaching our first target that we set at 1.191. That was our weekly R1 pivot, and then after that we saw price move even higher towards our second and full target at 1.96. That was the weekly S2 target. For this week, we can see that price has now re-entered back into this consolidation pattern, with our weekly R1 and S1 pivots being our overhead resistance and support. So at this stage, I think it would be important to keep an eye on this 100 SMA as well as this weekly pivot level, as this will give us a sense of more direction. So should we break or see any bullish price action above our weekly pivot at 1.184, we will likely see a retest of this upper resistance at 1.191. Of course, should we continue to see bearish price action below our 100 SMA, we will see firstly us retest this 1.70 level. That would be very close to our weekly S1 as well as this previous area of support that we can see. And of course, then should that not hold, we will move lower towards our monthly pivot at 1.162. Of course, also, should we break above this resistance area at 1.92, that could give us a higher target closer to 1.205, although that might be a bit soon to call. Then just very briefly looking at the economic calendar for the week, there's just a few events, high impact events that might have an effect on price. And just quickly browsing through them, we can see that we have crude oil inventories on Wednesday. We have the Federal Chair speaking on Thursday afternoon, the Bank of England Governor speaking at also late afternoon on Friday. Just keep an eye out and be aware that we do have some economic news that might affect price action. Looking now at the GBPUSD, we can see that price has reached our target set last week at 1.321. That was also our weekly R2 pivot, and also this overhead area of resistance in this diagonal channel. Price is still trending up in this bullish channel and mostly remaining above the 100 SMA on the 4 hour, although we have now briefly lost support of the 100. Although we still are above this diagonal area of support. So a very important level to keep an eye on would be this 1.308 level. So that's right where we are at currently. And I think the important thing here would be that if we were to break below this support, the next level of support would be at this 1.300 level. And of course, should we break below that, then we can test anything in between our 200 SMA on the 4 hour to our monthly pivot at 1.287. However, should we manage to get back above our weekly pivot, we will probably retest this overhead resistance, and that would be very close to our weekly R1 pivot. And of course, should we break above this consolidation area, we will likely target our weekly R2 pivot, or this area between the weekly R2 pivot and the monthly R1 pivot at 1.337. Moving on to the Australian dollar to USD, we can see that price has last week hit our first target set at 0.724, followed by very close to our second bullish target at 0.728, although it was just 5 pips short, and that probably is due to the fact that it hit this diagonal overhead resistance, and then it came back down to where we are currently finding some support at 0.715. And this is a very important level, obviously, because if we do break below this, it could take us lower first to where we will probably meet up with our 200 SMA on the 4 hour, and followed by our monthly pivot at 0.708. And if that were to fail, a full target would be lower, closer towards this support area at 0.703. And just considering possible bullish targets, I'm going to enable our weekly pivot projections. You can see that our weekly pivot level is at 0.719. And if we get back above that, it's likely that we might retest this upper area of resistance of our channel that we are currently forming. And that would be around about the monthly R1 pivot at 0.728. Looking now at the S&P 500, as anticipated, we managed to make a new high with the highs just touching 3,400, our 3,400 level. And at this stage, question would be, do we push higher towards the top of this channel and closer towards our monthly R2 pivot at 3,435? Or do we see the support level, very important support level at the monthly R1 pivot at 3,355 retested, that also being our interim diagonal support, and also this probably where we will meet up with this 100 SMA on the 4 hour. So very important level. Should we, of course, break below this level, I personally would say let's keep an eye on this 200 SMA on the 4 hour, followed of course by the very strong support level at our monthly pivot at 3,215. So yeah, in a very bearish scenario where we do break below all of these levels, I do expect that we will find a strong support at this 3,215 level. However, should we do see some more bullish price action from our monthly pivot and our 100 SMA, it's likely that we might even push higher to new all-time highs, closer towards this monthly R2 pivot at 3,435. And now, looking at Brent crude oil. Brent crude oil has lost the very crucial 44.60 level that we have been indicating in our previous weekly overview videos. And this area has now become a resistance where it was previously an area of support. This means that should we move back higher and move back into this area, it will act as resistance, possibly pushing price back lower towards this 43.90 level. And should we break below this, which is also our 200 SMA on the 4 hour, that will take us lower to the monthly pivot at $43.15. Should this level break lower in a very, very bearish scenario, that could take us as low as 41.50 to 41.90, as that is our previous area of support. although that would be a very bearish scenario, but still worth pointing out. And just considering possible bullish scenarios, should we manage to stay above our 200 SMA, similar to what happened end of July, and then we move back higher, firstly, we would need to get back above this 44.80 level, firstly, and afterwards then we'll have to get above this 45.30 level, as that was a very strong area of overhead resistance, as can be seen, and only in that scenario would we likely see Brent crude move higher towards levels such as the $47 area, where we'll find our monthly R2 pivots. Now looking at gold struggling to regain its previous bullish momentum with this 4-hour 200 SMA now offering some final support, and in the process also forming this symmetrical triangle consolidation area. And just looking at the 100 moving average as well as a 200 moving average, this will likely coincide with the overhead resistance and support below us. So any close obviously above our 100 SMA would give us bullish targets. Firstly, targeting this resistance area at 2050. And of course, if we do get above that, that could take us to new all-time highs. Whereas, of course, if we were to break below this 4-hour 200 SMA and below this 1,095 level, it will take us as low as 1,825. That is our monthly S1 level, and also a previous very strong area of diagonal support. As always, we conclude our weekly market overview with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has now lost our dynamic area of support, that is the 4-hour 100 SMA. This is the blue line that we can see has been acting as support for quite some time now. And of course, we also have this red area of that I indicated in red. That was the previous area of support. We can see that we are now rejecting this area, meaning this is now being turned into an interim area of resistance. This could mean that it will take us lower towards this 200 SMA on the 4-hour. It's likely that we will meet up with that around anything between 11,270 to 11,350. If we do manage to lose our 4-hour 200 SMA, the next levels of support would be at 10,990, or let's just say our 11,000 level, and then followed by our monthly pivot at 10,600. And of course, should all of these fail, the final line in the sand for Bitcoin would be the major breakout level, that is all the way down here at 10,250. This is the purple line that we've indicated over here, and also discussed on our weekly market overview last week, where we had a look at the higher time frame of the weekly on Bitcoin. Just considering possible scenarios for a bullish price move, we can see that we do have this very strange diagonal resistance area. I'm just going to plot it over there, meaning that we will need to get back above the 11,650 level firstly. Secondly, we'll need to get back above our 100 SMA, and then also, very importantly, we'll need to get above the weekly pivot at 11,800 if we want to see price action taking us higher and towards perhaps back towards this 12,200 to 12,242 level. And of course, in a very bullish scenario where we do break above all of these, the next areas of resistance will be at 12,900, and that is our yearly R1 pivot. But yeah, it's a bit difficult to see on this time frame. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of the new videos that we make available on a weekly basis. Also, if you are interested in receiving new trade setup ideas during the course of the week, keep an eye out on our Twitter account, where we will share these as and when they become available. Until next time, this is John Jacobs for RMDTRADER. Trade smart and trade successful.